But why I'm excited about the African experiment or what's happening in Rwanda and in some parts of Nigeria is that last year in Edo State here in Nigeria, the World Bank did a very interesting experiment. So they introduced GPT-4 as a co-pilot for students in a particular secondary school. And they were able to compress 2 years of learning into about 6 weeks. That excites me because I also know that one of the ways to make this transformation happen for the continent is that we have to educate as many people as possible, right? Especially the young people.
Welcome to the Meaningful Work, Meaningful Life podcast, the show that empowers you to redefine the life you want and live your best life now. I'm your host, Francine Belly, and in season 11, On Purpose, How to Live, Lead, and Thrive in the AI Age, we are exploring how to align personal purpose, leadership, and innovation without losing your human heartbeats. In previous episodes of this season 11, we've talked about who we need to become. Now, let's talk about how to build organizations and careers that use AI wisely and purposefully. And John Orakwe is the right person to answer this question. He has built a concrete leadership path in the AI age that transforms organizations, and he's also an award-winning AI strategist and AI educator. He works across the globe and specializes in guiding organizations through the full AI maturity journey, from basic awareness to truly transformative AI. So he also advocates for ethical and responsible AI across the global south. So if you are wondering how to move beyond playing with AI tools and actually design human AI workflows that create value and protect people, you are going to love this conversation. Hi, John. Welcome to the Meaningful Work, Meaningful Life podcast.
Hi, Francine. It's a pleasure to be here.
I love you to be on this podcast. Thank you so much for coming here today. So before we delve into the topic, take us back to your childhood. What did you want to do when you grew up?
Well, I mean, for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to, do things with my hands, right? To build things. The first 8 years of my life, I was in the village, right? You can say I was in the village. So the city life, I think I wasn't exposed to all of that. But when I was 8, I left Nsukka. Nsukka is a university town here in Nigeria. Left Nsukka and then came to Lagos to live with my dad. Me and my brother and my sister at the time, all three of us. And then came here, started school. I never liked school. That's the interesting thing. I mean, now I have an MBA, but I never liked school.
For somebody who didn't like school, that's great. What if you didn't like school? Where would you have been today?
I'd probably be somewhere else. I don't know, but somewhere working with my hand, maybe in the trades or something. I mean, no disrespect to people in the trades, but I would most likely have found myself in one of the trades. Maybe as a welder. I really love welding because second year of engineering in school. Welding was one of the activities I really enjoyed in the engineering class. So came here when I was 8, and then started school in Lagos. Did all that stuff. Did the regular thing, K-12, or as we call it here, UVE, all the way to senior secondary. And then, of course, got into university and did electrical engineering. The interesting thing is, when I was little, my grandmother used to call me an engineer. So in some sense, what she used to call me when I was a child, I ended up becoming an electrical engineer. But then, of course, I found computers and I loved computers. My very first job wasn't in engineering, was digital project management, software project management. So I've always been around this space. So I finished 2015 and then did 1 year of national youth service. I got my first job around 2018, digital project management. And then in 2019, I found a job at FutureSoft here in Nigeria. The very first assignment my boss gave me on that job was to build a chatbot. 2019, that project, I think I fell in love with chatbots. Luckily for me, 2020, about around June of 2020, I heard that this company called OpenAI has launched something called GPT-3. And I saw the possibilities of what GPT-3 could do for the world. So January of just about 6 months after that, I enrolled into an MBA program focused on AI and automation. The goal was to be ready for when all the businesses in the world would need someone who can help them understand the technology and guide their transformation from level 1 to level 5. And then fortunately, when I finished the MBA program 18 months after, in June of 2022, 2 months after that, we had these open source AI image model, text to image models. That was when they became really good. So, I mean, I could see that this was absolutely going to change the world. And from that time, November 2022 was when I officially said, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this thing full time. Help businesses understand what's happening. And since then, I've been doing this. So it's been over 3 years now, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to that question of, I mean, my youthful days, yeah, I always wanted to become an engineer. I ended up becoming an electrical engineer, but I'm doing a different kind of engineering now in the AI space, people and culture engineering.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, people and culture engineering. So you're fulfilling your grandmother prediction. So I've seen you posted the last time a video about some work that you went to Kigali in Rwanda to do.
Yeah.
So what are you focusing on right now in the AI space?
Well, I'm focused on the workflow redesign space, and I say workflow redesign because November 25 of this year, just a couple of days ago, McKinsey released something called Agents, Robots, and Us: Field Partnerships for the Age of AI, and I think it's a definitive document for this age that we're living in. If you haven't checked out that document, I mean, and to the audience, it's a document that you absolutely have to read.
Tell us again the name of the document, McKinsey what?
Agents, Robots, and Us: Field Partnerships for the AI age.
Okay.
So that document details all the ways that the AI transformation is happening. So what they found out was that the companies who are able to not just automate discrete tasks, but different tasks in across the entire company, the companies who are able to redesign how people work are those who get the most benefit from AI. So it's not just about automating maybe emails with this, automating different functions without bringing them together. The best way to do AI transformation is to redesign how work is done. So for the salesperson, it could be that AI is allowed to do lead outreach, lead discovery, lead enrichment, and what have you. So the human is not tasked with that kind of responsibility anymore. The machine does all of that, and the human is fully focused on speaking to all of the possible leads, building human-to-human relationships. So there are many other insights that you'll find there, and one of the most unforgettable insights that I found there were the 7 archetypes of future work. And then you'll see things like people-centric jobs. You have people agent jobs. You have people robot jobs. You have agent-centric jobs and other many other kinds of distinctions. So for anybody who is planning for how can they prepare their company for the future, they can use those 7 archetypes, discover how many archetypes function within the organization, and then plan for how they can redesign how work is. So what I'm actively doing now in December 2025 against 2026 is how can we enable workflow redesign at scale. So all the people I worked with before, and the good thing is that I've been preaching workflow redesign even before that McKinsey report showed up. So the way we work is we come into an organization, we get an SOP for different the SOPs for different jobs, more like the modus operandi of how they create value, and then we use that to rethink how this person functions. So I would say that the McKinsey report is only a validation of what we currently do. So for anyone who is thinking about the future, workflow redesign is where it's at. And then one other reason why that is even a big deal in the US alone, for companies who are able to redesign workflows and use AI to plug in certain functions and allow humans to do others, this entire field could unlock as much as $2.9 trillion by 2030, just in the US economy. We're not talking about the UK and other European countries.
Yeah, that is very useful resources that I'm sure that our listeners, I'm going to find it as well and link that in the show notes as well later. Tell me, John, you are on mission, obviously, to help these organizations unlock their sustainable growth through this AI adoption. So when you think about your deeper purpose, what do you feel you are really contributing to the world through your work?
So earlier today, I was with a group of young people, and they had a lot of questions about the future of work. They had so many questions. Some of them were worried about, what the world could look like because they're currently in universities. I didn't tell them about something called the remote labor index, which is the fact that even if AIs can do different tasks, they can do different tasks at fairly decent outputs. If you put everything that makes a job together, if you put an entire workflow together, they're only able to do 2.5% according to the remote labor index. So that's a way of reassuring someone who is worried about the future that they don't have to be worried as much. And then, if you combine that with the information we get from McKinsey and things like Jevons Paradox. So when I say Jevons Paradox, I mean that the godfather of AI said in 2016, you don't need to train radiologists anymore, but this is 2025, and now we have more radiologists than ever before. And that's because the job of a radiologist is not necessarily to use machines to scan people and then interpret those. What a radiologist should do is interact with as many agents as possible to make judgment calls on all the scans they get from these machines, not necessarily look at these results to try to interpret them, right? So the fact that you have AI systems that can help radiologists today means that they can get many more images from people who are sick and then make many more judgment calls. So the same thing is happening to a lot of roles. So my purpose, I would say, is helping people understand exactly how this revolution is happening. For those who are afraid, help them see all the right metrics, all the right indexes to make the right decision about what kind of job to go into or where to specialize. That's one thing. So if someone thinks that they can become a writer and in this age and time, and they're going to do English and literary studies, I wouldn't readily recommend them to choose a degree like that, because when I was doing my MBA program in 2022, if I wanted to produce 1,000 words of GRE quality writing, that's top decile GRE quality writing, you can see a business plan, I would have paid $500 at the time for something like this. But when GPT-4 showed up, March of 2023, the price crashed from 500 to 0.1. And then in April 2023, the price crashed from 0.1 to 0.01. So I see what's happening I see what's happening on the field. So I would say my role is to function as some sort of for the young people and for the organizations who are looking to rush AI, to show them the right way to do it. Slow down. Slow is fast in this space. And then for those who are even looking to fire as many people as possible, to tell them to hold on, because the technology is not quite there. There's a lot of confusion about what's happening now. So you can say guidance across board from the older generation to the younger generation. That's what makes this really interesting and joyful.
Yeah. And in a nutshell, if you have to say your purpose in the whole thing, so what would that be then?
That would be helping people, shining the light on the darkness of ignorance about AI and helping people see for what it really is.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Because again, as you say, there's a lot of fantasy going on about what AI is, what is not, etc. And then panic mode. I suppose that when we had got through the older age before, like, even when we move from non-computer to computer, people say, computer is going to take all our job. But actually, we didn't need a lot of people who need to know how to use computer to do even more. So, and I suppose that every time that we move for a new age, people kind of panic, say that, this technology is going to take my job. And then even the AI age, people were saying that, yeah, but this is the first time that machine are thinking or are reasoning or are doing things like human. But again, I think that is just the advancement of technology that actually is going beyond. But the more advanced it goes, the more human also may go above the technology to find some new solutions. So, yeah. So you also guide organizations, as I was saying earlier, along AI maturity journey. So, and then you have some levels. Can you break those levels down for us, and from awareness to transformative AI, and tell us which steps, what are those levels, and how people can, go from one level to the next?
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So awareness is the first stage. Awareness is, pretty much like this podcast. Every other time people listen to a podcast, any podcast where some expert is talking about AI and all the ways that organizations can profit from it, or maybe a case study is being explored. And I do share a lot of case studies on my LinkedIn page whenever I make one of them. So awareness is the first stage, understanding what the technology is and how it can profit your business and all the limitations as well. So it's not just about the possibilities, but also the limitations. That's awareness. And I would say awareness is also understanding things like the 7 archetypes of future work, right? So how can you reshape the organization? How can you do all the things that other people are doing? That's awareness.
Exactly.
So beyond that,
it's just going around and finding what's possible, what's the limitation, what's going on around. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So beyond that, beyond awareness, you then enter the active stage. So active is you look at one particular workflow and decide, okay, you know what? Let's introduce AI into this workflow and see how it can profit us. So if, for instance, this person runs a call center, a contact center, or maybe even if it's a small business, they want to have a digital receptionist. They could use a product like 11labs.io, for instance, and they build a receptionist, something that people can speak to even at 4 a.m. when no human is available to speak to them. This can answer their business phone and tell the user whatever they need to hear. It could be a booking that the user wants to make. It could be a question that they have. That's the active stage.
That's operational. The level 2. Is that the level 2 or yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that's level 2. Level 2 could also be if, let's say, a product like Notebook LM, which is fantastic. I speak about Notebook LM everywhere because I think there's this danger of people losing their human agency and critical thinking to AI. The interactive feature on Notebook LM, the audio interactive feature is fantastic. It forces you to listen to the conversation so you can ask questions and participate. Right? Exactly. That's a very beautiful product. So I would say that active is also identifying that I have specific needs. I want to do rapid learning, and I want to be able to use Notebook LM to reinforce the things that I learn and to be much smarter. So AI, you can use AI to be much smarter and actively using Notebook LM. Or the active stage is also using a product like Speech, Google's Speech, to do rapid prototyping. The person could have an idea right now, and they can build a prototype the next 20 minutes after they get that idea with stage. So that's the active stage. You're actively using all these different tools to understand how AI works.
You even also show me Lovable sometime when we had a call.
Yes.
Lovable is part of that active. Is part of that active stage too. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So active is, okay, we're using the technology and trying to understand all the ways that we can, change how we work. Then the operational stage is the stage where it now becomes a part of the daily operations of the business, right? So awareness, active, operational. Yeah. That operational is that everything we do, the technology is part of it. So you can see that the culture has changed to the degree that AI is now part of everything that happens. And I would say a very good example of operational is someone who, every time they get an email, to help them break down the email or to understand the email, there's an AI assistant that they have. I use an AI assistant in my Gmail inbox, and it's really smart.
What does that assistant does in your email?
So there's a project I'm currently trying to close the project this coming week. So whenever I open the mail thread whenever I open the thread for that particular email, I see everything that has transpired so far. So I see the first time I got the RFP. I see when I responded to the RFP. I see everything that has happened in that thread. And whenever I need to type a response to the prospect, what happens is that I simply tell the AI, just generate a response like this, and it will read everything that has transpired so far and draft the response. The reason why I speak of email assistance as something that is at the operational level is because there's this McKinsey report from 2012 that said the average busy professional spends about 28% of their work week reading and responding to emails, right? So that's a huge time that people spend.
You can delegate that to an agent to do that for you.
Perfect. So that's why email is a very good example of that operational stage. So the AI can simply just take care of all the drafting of email responses.
Yeah, and also meetings, like we're having meeting, you add an assistant also to transcribe and do reports and all those things, right?
Perfect. Yes. And there's so many note takers. Firefly is a fantastic example of an operational. So Firefly is a perfect example. And then one example of a company that we recently did some fantastic work for. They now operationalize that tool. They do tax advisory, legal advisory, consulting for government agencies here in Nigeria. So before now, whenever they get an RFP, they take about 3 weeks to respond because the humans have to work on it. It has to be as detailed as possible. So what we did was we created, it was a very simple automation, very simple. We did it with custom gen. So it wasn't even N8N or, any of the complex tools. What we did was we used custom gen, designed the system prompt, and then fed about 50 past proposals that they had written based on RFPs that they've gotten from, different companies. And then what they now do is that once they get an RFP, they simply feed this RFP to the AI. It drafts the initial copy. So they still maintain a human in the loop.
Of course.
So one characteristic of the operational stage is that the companies who do it have the human in the loop instituted.
Yeah,
An
you don't
example
want
of a
your
company,
agent to be writing whatever and then send it out, and then it's not what actually was the needs of the customer. Definitely.
very true. Very true. So whenever the AI is done drafting, two different people have to review the draft and inject all the other things and make it human, like give it more soul. So that's the operational stage. Beyond that, you have the systemic, right?
The what? Systemic.
Yes, systemic.
Okay.
Systemic is the fourth stage.
Yeah.
So at the fourth stage, I would say that a company like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, NBIM, you could say that they're at the systemic stage, at the fourth level. And why I say that is because this year, he used AI to save about 213,000 hours for themselves, right? So if you were to do the math, 213,000 hours is 100 full-time employees, right? And then maybe if you go to another company like JP Chase, the US, they use a particular AI to contract intelligence to save about 360,000 hours annually. So this
What
is,
are they using it for? What kind of thing are they using AI for?
So for drafting contracts, right? For reviewing contracts, for all analysis, and for generating new contracts. That's what contract intelligence solves. So they call it the coin platform. So a company like that, you could say they are at the systemic stage where several departments have this tool that is saving them as much as 50,000 hours, 8,000 hours, 360,000 hours across board. At the final level is now what you call transformative. I really do not think that there's any company in the world today that is at the transformative level yet.
What about Shein? Shein, the online platform that's coming from China, they use AI to create the design and look at the feedback, what's going on social media, and then feedback and send. They have AI all their supply chain actually. So perhaps Shein may be perhaps a transformative one.
They may be at that level, but what I would call transformative is that from the top to the bottom of the organization, across, let's say, 80 to 90% of everything that they do, there's an injection of AI to everything, so that humans are effectively at the third phase of human-led agent operated. So the agents do virtually everything for everyone in the business, and humans just lead. More like we're just the humans are just orchestrating all of these different agents doing everything. And so the reason why I say we would struggle to find a perfect example of a transformed organization is because today's agents are really great at some tasks, but then you give them some other tasks and they're not so great at it. And then of course, because of the remote labor index that I mentioned earlier, only 2.5%. As the tools get better, then I think that we'll see organizations where Replit, for instance, I think Replit is the perfect candidate for a company that could be at transformative really soon. And why I say this is because 2024 coming into 2025, they were really struggling, and then they decided to lay off half of their staff. You would think that after laying off half of their staff that they would struggle, but they didn't. In fact, what happened was that they did a 5 times increase in productivity and a 10 times increase in revenue. Perfect example. I don't have the particular numbers that they did, but this is how AI agents help them. So I think that over time, maybe let's say 2028, 2027, we'll start to see examples of companies that maybe just take 10 people and they are doing $10 billion annual revenue or $20 billion annual revenue. Then at that point, I think we'll have, pure transformative.
Definitely. And more or less at the moment, which maturity level you think that most company are? Are they on 1 and 2 perhaps level?
So the people who really started early and who took their time to place humans at the center. They did center the humans. The people who started early and placed humans at the center, the MBIM that I mentioned earlier, JP Chase that I mentioned earlier, you could say at level level 4, systemic.
Okay.
So it's becoming a part of how they do everything. And you're hearing things like 100,000 hours saved, 213,000 hours saved, 60,000 hours saved. You could say that they are level 4. Then a bunch of other businesses are at level 3. They're still operationalizing. So all the pilots that we have, all the many pilots that we have, are just at the active stage. So awareness, active, no, they are the operational. They are the active and operational, between active and operational stage.
How many level at this time? How many level have you been able to move a company to? Have you been able to move a company from like 0 to perhaps operational, or what? How many level have you been able to move a company to by now? Actually,
so we've gone from awareness, and we've done a lot of awareness, which is expected, especially in this part of the world. We've also gotten to the active stage. The goal for 2026 is to work at the operational level. So we're currently executing a couple of projects at the operational level, but the goal for 2026 is to get to systemic, so that I can come out on a podcast like this and tell you, oh, I work with this client in Abuja, in Kigali, in Cape Town, and we're able to save 50,000 hours. So like I'm telling you about ABDC in Abuja, we transformed the process that usually takes 3 weeks and made it 30 minutes. So by the end of next year, I will tell you how many thousand hours we're able to save them across the entire year. And then you could say we'll be at this systemic stage.
Yeah, I suppose that, yes, by the end of 2026, there will be like quite a lot of leaps, actually. So tell me, John, what surprised you the most in this job and what you have seen already in, what you are doing? What surprised you the most?
So it's something that I reflected a lot about this week. So I was in Kigali early November.
Yeah.
And I was, talking to the leadership of the central bank. So I spoke to them about the fact that they have to practice something called the junior plus senior dynamic. So what that means is that when you're doing AI, when you're doing organizational transformation with AI, or you're pursuing AI transformation benefits, what needs to happen is that the seniors in the business have to be paired with the juniors. The seniors have a very good understanding of how the business functions. They know everything that makes the business tick. But the juniors are the ones who understand the technology. So you have to pair both of them, and then that's how you form a winning team. What I discovered was and it was when I was having a conversation with some other people, and they were talking about how there's a high power distance in African cultures. The CEO is up there, and the juniors are all the way down there.
You're not going to see a junior coming from school telling the CEO that, let me come and I'll teach you AI.
Oh yeah. So it occurred to me that first, AI is people and culture. Fundamentally, to make AI work in any organization, it's people and culture. It's 70% of the job. Then the other 20% is processes and systems, and then the last 10% is technology. So the main thing is people and culture. So with that understanding, I just figured that in cultures with high power distance, we really have to address that high power distance before we can make the benefits of AI seen. It's a different thing if, let's say, we're working in Denmark or some other European country, and there are few opportunities, in those spaces, or even in Canada or New Zealand, where there were a few projects that I was on in 2024. It's easier to make everyone understand why they need to, pull together, huddle together, and function as a team. But when I had the conversation this week, I then played my mind back to Kigali, and when I told these people that they had to be very close to the juniors in the organization, how they reacted. I didn't notice it at the time, but just having this conversation this week and then having that reflection, it occurred to me that in culture with a high power distance, that high power distance between seniors and juniors could be a hindrance to the success of AI. Part of what I now, what I'm going to intentionally do in 2026 is make this known and help, the seniors, the leaders see that, for them to really win, this is how, they have to change their culture, and this is how they have to relate to the juniors. A totally different shift from what we have currently.
That has to be like at a national level and at a family level, at all level, to get people to understand this, because if you have been taught in your household that you have to respect the boss and the top, and then you arrive in the organization and they say you are junior, you're going to go and mentor 50 years old, even the junior might not feel like, they can do these things. So how are you on earth going to bridge that gap in a year? So because this has been going on for centuries before. So how can that be, what's the magic pill for you to be able to to squeeze that then?
Right. So the good thing is that I'm a millennial, right? So sometimes when I walk into a room and I see, these people, especially one of the banks that I talked to in the middle of November, I walked into the room and they were like, why is it that all the people talking about, yeah, young people, like, why is that the key? And I had to explain to them that, look, this is the best way to make this work for society is that the young people who understand the technology, who can keep up with everything happening in this space, and there's a lot happening in this space. The people who can keep up with what's happening. But then those who understand business, those who understand the core of how a business functions, then have to relate with the younger people. And that's how we can marry the knowledge of business and how AI works, the possibilities and limitations to build a new world altogether. So McKinsey has said, and we all know that, yes, what is happening now is that the way we work is fundamentally going to change. Change will do some part, and then human do some other part. So what I do in my own workshops, in seminars, everything that I do is that I point them to other cultures, like Singapore, for instance. There's a national mandate to do this junior plus senior alignment. This learning dynamic is at a national level. So I show it to them that, look, this is national here because they understand that this is how you win with the technology. So they're seeing results from Singapore. So with the central bank, I pointed them to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, how they're using AI to win and why the senior plus junior dynamic is working for them. So I think people respond to when they see results of a particular thing. So in this case, junior plus senior, these are the results. If you practice it, you could achieve the same result. So that's the incentive for them to want to do this differently.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. So let's talk about this new role also that you are saying manager to be coming now, where in one of your posts you say that the era of the supervisor is ending and, now is the era of the orchestrator. So tell us, how do you see that unfolding?
Right. So the orchestrator is a manager who is not only able to manage humans, but can manage different AI agents. An orchestrator is just someone who can do workflow analysis. They look at a particular role. They can see, okay, 80% of what you do can be automated, or maybe 50, 60%, depends, whatever the percentage is. You can let the machines do the execution of those roles, and then you focus on the human elements. So you're doing negotiations, you're building relationships, you're making judgment calls, right? So an orchestrator is essentially a manager, a person who understands AI. So they have very good AI literacy. Just to note, the demand for AI literacy skills grew sevenfold in the US in 2025 alone. The orchestrator is someone who understands the technology, they understand the possibilities, understand the limitations, and if you put them in a particular position in a team, they can look at every job on that team and decide 50% of what we have on this team, the machines can do. So the example I gave earlier, RFP, responding to RFPs. An orchestrator could come into a company like the client AC in Abuja and say, okay, you know what, we respond to RFPs. We spend 3 weeks. One staff, a human employee, will spend 3 weeks responding to RFPs. We won't work like that anymore. So what we're going to do is we'll build an agent. The manager can build it, or they can train, this direct employee to build it. They build an agent, a simple agent or a complex agent, which does the drafting of RFPs. So the new job of the employee becomes, when the AI has drafted the proposal, you have to review it. So that's what the orchestrator is doing. So in this sense, the orchestrator is also someone who has a lot of experience in that role. So that when the junior staff has produced the proposal, they can look at it and say, oh, there's a missing element here, there's a missing element there. I think you should tweak the system prompt so that the AI doesn't miss this in the future drafts. So they are working with the employee. They are seeing the results of what the employee is making. They also, and then they are giving them feedback, and they're also giving the employee feedback to tweak the AI agents to produce better results in future. So this I think is one of the best ways to explain the role of that orchestrator. They manage not just humans, they manage humans plus AI agents, and they keep refining, finding the AI agents and keep giving feedback to the humans.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this scenario, so what are the key skills? Obviously, they need to understand technology. What else? That are the skill of this new orchestrator manager. So, of course, being AI literate. What else? What other skills do they need to have?
So I think the most important skill for this job role is curiosity. Number one,
Okay.
I think they have to be really curious. And I say that because the AI space changes really fast. So whenever something shows up in the marketplace, and of course, the orchestrator can even build a tool that helps them discover new tools that in the marketplace that can help them in their job, right? So maybe the first thing an orchestrator can do is build a tool that scouts the marketplace, the AI marketplace, to find new tools that can help them in their role and in their team members in all that they do as well. First thing is curiosity. You have to be really curious. Whenever something happens in the marketplace, the orchestrator has to be able to shows up and then link it back to how it affects the business. And then of course this is something that happens every 3 months. So like I said, there's something called the task completion time horizon. Every 3 months, today's AI agents double in capacity. So if let's say you are trying to use them to build a full scope application at the beginning of this year, something that has a front end and a back end, it wouldn't have been possible in January of 2025. But this is December, and you can build something with a front end, back end, and even a middleware. That's all possible now. So the orchestrator will be someone who can track the progress of the technology over time. If by the end of first quarter of 2026 you have AI systems that can now build really complex applications, or they can do end-to-end analysis. The orchestrator is someone who can tell that, okay, there's a new tool in the marketplace for this, and then they bring it into the business. They test it as extensively as possible, and then they find a position where that new tool can function without compromising security, without compromising the company's data. Like I said, slow is fast. So it's not about who can adopt the most tools the fastest. It's about finding what works in the marketplace. If you cannot build it internally, looking for a way to buy it and then a way to integrate it securely so that company data is not compromised and the human in the loop is not losing their agency to the machine. So why I say that is the orchestrator also has to make sure that they do something called AI fast, digital fast. And it's necessary because, last year, December of last year, ChatGPT was down for a couple of hours. A couple of
I
people
remember
said
that.
they couldn't
I
work.
remember that time. Yeah.
They couldn't do anything. You notice they couldn't do anything because they needed the tool to come out before they continued what they were doing. So a digital fast is something that allows humans to maintain their skills. So more like your training athletes, you don't allow them use all the aids all the time, right? So sometimes you just allow them work just by themselves, so that even if you take away all the tools that they used to rehearse to practice, if they don't have all of the paraphernalia, they're still able to deliver and they're still able to keep themselves in shape. In addition to curiosity, like I said, your orchestrator has to be able to identify what happens in the marketplace, in the AI marketplace, link it back to the business. And this is something that I believe they should do every 3 months. Every 3 months, because that's the time it takes for the capacity of today's AI agents to double. And finally, the orchestrator has to be responsible for making sure that the humans under their employment do not lose their agency to the machines. That's very important.
Wow. I love that. I love that role. And it sounds really meaningful role because a lot of managers are actually seeing, because a lot of management role actually is what is threatened in the current way that we see the management role. That is what is threatened, because in the past, manager used to know more than the junior. But now with ChatGPT, anybody can go and prompt, right? But as an orchestrator, the manager now has some more meaning, because they are now going to be, as you say, make sure that the person doesn't lose its agency to the machine, being the orchestrator, looking around. So that is way more meaningful. So they don't feel, I suppose, threatened anymore, because the role evolve. Keep this kind of, if I can say, that kind of hierarchy at the top, because they are no longer now the person who know more than the junior, because this is not what they are looking for in the terms of skills that the manager need to know. So I think that is more, of course, it sounds more meaningful as role than the current management role. And also, obviously, keep coaching your employee to make sure that they do meaningful work, right? So this is the purpose of the podcast, meaningful work, meaningful life. So ensure that actually your employees actually do meaningful work and don't become robots. So now, let's talk about AI in Africa, where, it's very close to your heart, and you live in Abuja, and you work also across the African country on the top of working elsewhere. We know that Africa is one of the youngest, most dynamic, most innovative region at the moment. Yet the global conversation about AI often overlooks that. So what's going on? What do you think that the world gets wrong about AI in Africa? And also what that what are the realities that you are seeing on the ground?
Well, so I mean, I look at the AI conversation from three different perspectives. Compute. So you need lots of compute to train these big models. Then you have data. You need lots of data to improve the models to make them much more capable. And then you need algorithms. So you have researchers that come up with all kinds of interesting algorithms. So if I look at these three uh, dimensions, I think that where we can really play and make a lot of difference is the human side. That's the data side of things. And if I may add to these three dimensions, especially because of what I've seen over the last 5 years, and then because of the McKinsey report, I think that there are people who will help define how we work. So you can think of like maybe like work redesign consultants or automation consultants. I don't know what we're going to call them now, but I think it's a role that doesn't even exist yet, right? So, to the question of how we're going to fit into this new world, I think that the people who will design how we work, this new world of work, and the people who provide the data for improving the models will come from the continent. And why I say that is this: so I was in Rwanda 4 weeks ago, and while I was there, I noticed that all of the teachers were being prepared to learn how to work with AI, to introduce AI in the classroom, and I was really excited about that because they're taking the slow is fast approach. Unlike South Korea, where they spent $850 million and got nothing. A lot of money gone and they got nothing. So Rwanda is taking that approach because what they want is that they would introduce AI in the classroom in 2026. And what that means is that every secondary school, every primary school, and I hope the universities, there's going to be AI in the curriculum. Much like what Estonia is doing with the AI Transformation Agenda 2025, is doing it, China is doing it. But why I'm excited about the African experiment or what's happening in Rwanda and in some parts of Nigeria is that last year in Edo State here in Nigeria, the World Bank did a very interesting experiment. So they introduced GPT-4 as a co-pilot for students in a particular secondary school, and they were able to compress 2 years of learning into about 6 weeks, into just 6 weeks of the teacher was augmented with AI, and then the teacher then worked with the students to see how much more learning they could do. So they compressed 2 years of learning in 6 weeks. That excites me because I also know that one of the ways to make this transformation happen for the continent is that we have to educate as many people as possible, right? Especially the young people. We hear things like by 2040 we'll have the most number of young people in the world. By 2050 our population is going to be, I think, top two in the world, or if not number one in the world, but mostly young people. If we have all these young people and they're going to define, how the world is going to look like in 2040 or maybe in 2050, what we need to do now is scale things like what we've seen in Edo State in Nigeria. Where 2 weeks, 2 years of learning was compressed into 6 weeks. And then you look at what's happening in Rwanda. They effectively try to mirror what has happened in Nigeria in Rwanda. So if anything, the positives are that we see governments, some governments, not everybody, some governments are looking at education and thinking, you know what, we can absolutely effect a quantum leap, or as they say, a transformative effect in this sector. Education is one place where I'm very particular about, and I follow a lot of the advancements in that space. If every government on the continent can get it right and introduce AI correctly into the primary schools, into the secondary schools, and into universities, a lot of the limitations of today's systems, of the current education system that we have on the continent, can be overcome. And the good thing is that we now have things like notebook LM. So we talked about notebook LM earlier, that the danger is that people can lose their agency to AI. But with things like interactive learning on notebook LM, it is possible for anybody to interact with the material. So you're not just receiving, you're participating in the process, and it becomes a tool that improves your learning, not just you don't need to just pass everything down to you. So on the continent, I really want to focus on the positives. That's the
Yeah,
transformation in education that I've seen so far.
yeah.
There are many other things that can be done. And we do not have the compute to train models. We do not have the engineers down here to build, large language models. But we can look at what China is doing, DeepSeek, and all the other countries that are, taking models and fine tuning them and producing great results. We can do that too. And there are, some examples. Yan GPT is one example. A young man here who created a text-speech model that understands Nigerian languages better than 11 Labs and all the other options from the US. So there are many examples like this. But what I would like to see is governments actively come into the space and support more people. Thankfully, there are things like 5 new AI factories that Cassava Technologies, led by Strive Wasiwa, is trying to build. So things
Yes.
like that will help us with the compute side of things. More investments are needed for us to jump into algorithms so more of our people can become AI scientists, AI researchers. And then of course our own data has to be domiciled within Africa. So we don't have to ship all of our data to the US and everywhere else for them to be used to train models and exploit us further, right? So it's necessary for us to
Yeah.
invest in technology
Yeah.
domestically
I
and
love
make
that.
more.
I love how you can see some opportunities of Africa leapfrogging in terms of education to, really compress that very fast, actually. Like what has happened with the mobile technology and mobile revolution in Africa, where they
Yeah.
have been able to leapfrog. So there may be again and new actually avenues and new domains where Africa will be able to leapfrog. Love that. So, and also, what would you say that Africa can uniquely teach us about how to stay human in the AI age?
I love this question because I wrote an article earlier this year.
Did you? I didn't see that.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you after this. I'll send it to you after
Okay.
this
Yeah.
call. And in that article, so I was speaking to the Igbo philosophy of how we're more than just materials, right? I can't quite recall my arguments in that article, but what I did say is that we're just humans and will return to dust. But in Igbo philosophy, you find that the definition of the human being goes beyond space time,
Yeah.
right? And why I made that argument is because I noticed that if we get to the point where we have AGI, artificial general intelligence, that is a machine that can do anything we can do on a computer screen, what does it then mean to become human, right? So it's a philosophical question. What does it mean to be human? So the Western definition of humanity is limited in this age where you have machines that can do virtually anything a human can do. There are many cultures within Africa that the definition of being human goes beyond just the flesh, right? And in fact, if you go to physics, there are things like quantum information panpsychism, right? It's in quantum physics where they say that we're not, we're energy, right? We're energy, and that we're the observer, the observed, and we're the projector. So what we're saying is like we're almost like we're wearing a virtual headset. All of those kinds of theories that you find in quantum mechanics, you can find it in the Igbo culture. I'm Igbo from Nigeria. So I had to go back to my ancient culture to discover that all of the new philosophies being suggested as this is how we can reorganize society when we have AGI, they are present within my ancestral culture. And I'm very sure that if you investigate many ancient
Yes.
African traditions, you'll
Yep.
find that the definition of being human goes beyond just the flesh. There's more to us. So we need a way to maintain human exceptionalism when machines are really, really good. And I think that many ancient cultures, especially African cultures, I've mentioned Igbo culture, can provide us some of those answers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because usually, when people talk about AIA, so, if some culture are trying to or are threatening to lose their humanity, how Africa actually can perhaps reverse the tendency, and perhaps a lot of teachers or a lot of coaches can come from Africa also, or to train those model, or train human to stay human, whilst the robot and the machine are going to be machines. So we have to learn our humanity again. And some people might have lost what it means to be human. And then perhaps there is an opportunity for African culture, ancient culture, to actually bring that to the table. So that can be like, a great exchange that
Oh
can
yes.
go on, actually. So yeah, I love that. So for professionals who are worrying about being replaced by AI, what is one mindset that they can have to really get out of their head that they are going to be replaced by machine, or one practical action that they can do?
So the first thing I would recommend is for them to get the McKinsey report. That's the Agents, Robots, and Us report. I suggest that they read it. That will help them understand how this revolution is actually happening. And then there's another video by Gary Tan, that's the president of Y Combinator, where he talked about something called Jevons Paradox. The godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, 2016, he said we shouldn't train radiologists anymore, that they will all
Which
be replaced by
paradox? Which
machines.
which paradox he said? He talked about what paradox?
So Jevons Paradox. Jevons.
Jevons. Jevons Paradox. Okay.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's simply the fact that when you introduce an efficiency into a particular workflow, chances are, and of course you crash the cost of acquiring the skill set for that workflow, chances are that the hiring of people that have that skill set increases. In this case, the radiologists, right? So by the time the AI models cut down the time and the resources it takes for them to analyze a medical image, more of them were hired, right? So hospitals hired more radiologists because they did now have to spend 30 minutes, 1 hour just analyzing one image. The AI can do that. And then when it does the analysis, the radiologist can then pass judgment on that analysis from the machine. So if they don't okay it just instantly, they have to still do a little analysis, but it cuts down the time it takes them to do that analysis from, let's say, 30 minutes to just, let's say, under 5 minutes. So that way hospitals can hire more people. So whenever we hear things like, this entire field is going to disappear. Well, the truth is that some jobs are going to disappear altogether. Writing is really endangered. Writing is, very exposed to AI. So people who are like editors, writers are very exposed to being replaced. Chances are they're going to be replaced, except they are, super exceptional, like J.K. Rowling. I don't think an AI can come up with an entire Harry
Mhm.
Potter book just yet. But there are jobs that will definitely be affected. So what I would recommend is for people who are unsure of where they stand, there's something called the Job Impact Index.
The job
There's
what
an AI
index?
for that.com. They can
What is it
Job
called?
Impact Index. Job
Import.
Impact Index.
Okay.
Impact, yes. Job Impact Index. So
Okay.
you can check out the Job Impact Index. Then there's a second index called the Remote Labor Index.
Mm.
All right. They can also check out the remote labor index. So these are, two indexes, two indexes that track how AI is transforming work, like how it's actually transforming work. The reliable one you can use, the most reliable one is the remote labor index. So that's something you can always check to see, okay, how is this, how are the machines advancing in this particular field of work? But if anything, the advice I always give, what I would say is that if you have this mindset of service, that is, you're obsessed with fulfilling the needs and desires of other people regardless of how the machines evolve. One thing we know for sure is that human wants and desires are insatiable. We would always, once we have one thing, we want another thing. Once we have this thing, we want another thing. So if you're the person who, regardless of how the machines improve, you're always in the position to, I want to serve people. Whatever the needs and desires of people are, I want to be able to fulfill it. So even if we get to a world where you have AGI and these machines are everywhere and are really capable, robots are everywhere, humans will still have wants and desires. And as long as it's within the, ambit of you're not doing anything illegal, so long as you have that mindset, I believe you'll always find something to do. So the most important skill I will talk about, I would say we need right now is flexibility. To have this learning mindset, you're always willing to, always willing to learn, and you're flexible enough to want to switch to as many different fields as possible. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun in the next decade and maybe the next 2 decades.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of jumping from here to there, and so many career options are going to open up. So the people who are really going to love what's happening are those who are fluid enough to accept that this is the period of great change, and then they have that mindset of wanting to serve other people. So I think that's one way to
Yeah.
survive what's happening now.
Yeah. So we need to learn, to keep learning and then to be flexible. The two thing is very, very important. As we are closing, John, I'd like
Yeah.
to ask you, for you personally, at this stage of your journey, how do you stay on purpose?
Well, what I look out for, especially when I do projects, is the reaction I get from people. That's something that I really look out for. So it's the work what I do when I work with people and I see how they react to the change that we have created. I mean, that gives me all the fulfillment. So if let's say we're going from 3 weeks to 30 minutes. And I see the relief on the face of the person who, used to do this job before. You're speaking to them about a fear that they had before. Maybe they thought that, oh, by 2026, they are all going to be replaced. And then you help them understand that, no, this is not how it's going to happen. There's still a long way off. The researchers are saying AI is moving from the scaling phase back to the research phase, which means that for the next 5, maybe 10 years, we're going to be taking to these LLMs and building all kinds of interesting automations and pursuing workflow redesign. So helping them understand what's happening and just seeing the relief on their faces and helping them clear their doubts and all the fears they have about the technology. I get my purpose from the reaction that I see on people's faces in the boardrooms, in virtual sessions. I do a lot of virtual sessions, but I enjoy the physical classes more, right? Especially the ones that allow me to travel to other countries and talk to people.
Yeah.
So when you help them work on all of these different problems and you see the results instantly, that's really fulfilling. And one thing I so like about the job is that the room for failure is very minimal. You have to deliver results. You cannot. There are no stories. There are no stories. You have to give them results. So whenever I see the impact of the results from those sessions, usually beforehand they tell me, okay, these are the things we want to achieve. These are the questions we have. And we want you to be able to answer all these questions and give us all of these results. So usually I like to under promise and over deliver. So when it happens and I see the reaction from them, that's what I really enjoy about the work. Right?
That's
And that's how I stay
lovely.
on purpose.
Yeah,
To
lovely.
deliver, yeah.
There's nothing great to see the impact you're making in people's life, at work or in real life. So I love that. So, what do you want people to take away from this conversation as we are coming to the end?
This is change, and change can be scary, but it is equally exciting. Depends on how you frame it in your mind. Change, as scary as it is, presents a lot of interesting opportunities. So it's just a way of, if you have a way of reframing it correctly, you will enjoy what is happening. Like, I'm excited to wake up every morning because I know that there's something new that I'm going to see, right? So it's like a child in a playground, in a new playground. That's how I feel, just working because I really enjoy managing change. But one thing I would say is not to be afraid of what's happening. No matter what happens, like I said, the people who win are those who are open to what's happening. They learn as quickly as possible, and they have the mindset of wanting to serve other people. It is not wise now to have, let's say, a 5-year career plan, 10-year career plan, or 15-year career plan. If you have one of those, just throw it into the bin. It doesn't work anymore. What you need to have is just an open mindset, and you're very fluid to accept that the world is changing really fast. How we work is going to change. And I would also say, go and check the 7 archetypes of future work. So you have people centric, agent centric, people agent, people robot, people agent robots and agent robots. There are many ways of combining all the ways of working, but what we're going to have is skill partnerships between humans, agents, and robots. So you need to find out where you fit in, what kind of opportunities are available in all the other spaces. So when I speak about opportunities, I mean that in the agent robots space, you can be an asset owner. So you can own these autonomous Tesla taxis, and they drive people around and make money for you. So you're in your house and your taxis are on the road making money. So you can have a couple of drones that make deliveries for you, and then you get paid just from your drones that are functioning on the streets. So that's something that you'll find in the agent robots category of jobs. So I think what needs to happen is for anyone who is listening to the show, pick up that report from McKinsey, study it. It will help you put the next 4 years into beautiful light, so you know how to operate, and so that I don't think we're going to have AGI in the next 4 years. And AGI is artificial general intelligence, a machine that can do virtually anything we can do in a computer, and it can learn new skills on the go. Before we have that, there's still
Yeah,
some room left.
yeah.
So, and in that room, I think that you can enjoy a lot of interesting things just by learning about how the future could shape up and being ready for whatever happens.
We're going to move from being like a landowner that we are today and having a land or like having petrol oil to having like a lot of robots going around and delivery stuff actually for us. So I love
Oh yeah,
that
oh
kind
yeah.
of, yes, it is a new way of actually is what the funniest thing is that human are going to do whatever they are doing, but with new technology. I think that is going to be the thing.
Yeah,
So it's going to be the same. It's just the
yeah.
technology that is going to be different, but there will be owners who are going to own all kind of stuff, all kind of machine, all kind of agents. That is going to be like the land owners of today or the building owners of today. So thank you so much, John, for this brilliant conversation. I really, really enjoyed that. And I hope that our listeners and those who are watching on YouTube also are enjoying this. So tell me, just before we leave, where can listeners go and learn more about you and your work?
LinkedIn is number one place. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. So I try to post at least once a day about my work, case studies. It could be a video of a workshop we just finished. There's so many things I talk about on LinkedIn, but the idea is just, from level one, awareness to active to operational, systemic eventually, and then transformative to just help people understand how to function at all of those different levels of AI maturity. And if the last couple of posts have been mostly inspired by the McKinsey report, which I've mentioned a lot since this conversation started. It's a very important report. Yeah,
I'll
LinkedIn is where people
definitely
can
read
find
it.
it
I
also.
haven't read it either, so I'll definitely go and read it myself as well. Thank you so much, John. So it was really a brilliant conversation. As we close this conversation, one thing should stand out. AI transformation does not fail because people resist change. It fails because is imposed, change is imposed without redesigning how human work, decide, and relate. John reminded us that adopting tools is easy. Redesigning workflows, leadership, and culture is the real work. Efficiency without agency hollows people out. Automation without judgment creates fragility, and leadership based on hierarchy collapse in a world where knowledge is no longer scarce. What replaces it is something quieter and more demanding. Orchestration, system thinking, cultural intelligence, and curiosity. So here is your purpose sprints for this week. This is focused from moving from AI to curiosity, human-centered impact. What is one workflow in your role that exists only because that's how it's always been done? What is one task that drains your energy but add little meaning? What is one place where your judgments must never be removed? If only efficiency improves, it's not transformation. We need to redesign work without losing what makes us human. This is how we live, lead, and thrive on purpose. So if you want support reconnecting with your own strength and purpose as you navigate change, you'll find the free Ikigai quiz at francinebelay.com/podcast. The show notes of the episodes are also available on the same page at francinebelay.com/podcast. As this season comes to a close, I don't want to offer prediction or conclusion. I want to leave you with something more enduring, a choice. We'll find out more next week when I'll see you for another episode of season 11 of Meaningful Work, Meaningful Life podcast. Until then, dream, act, and make an impact. Lots of love.